You ready, Dan? Okay. I call the Planning, Environment, and Development Committee meeting of March 7th to order. Do roll call. Joe?
Yes, here.
Carolyn?
Here.
John?
Here.
Carl?
Present.
And we're missing Jim, and Lou will be back in a minute. We'll move on to minutes approval. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 7th meeting? Moved by Carolyn, seconded by Carl. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? Seeing none, we'll go to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, you're gonna put Lou on there as being here. Lou is here.
Lou is.
All right. Go to public comments.
Jamie, public comment?
Is that it, Mr. Vanderspool?
Good morning.
Thank you.
I'm Jen Vanderspool. I live at 8708 Bull Run Trail. I've been before the board since August, at which time my concern about ADUs going up in my neighborhood against my covenant explicit denial of allowing that in my neighborhood was identified as an unintended consequence, and I'm gonna keep coming to you to ask for help, because I don't really feel that the unintended consequence aspect has been addressed, at least to my satisfaction. I do appreciate the inclusion of a covenant disclosure on permits that should be upcoming. I think that's a great step, but it doesn't really cover the situation that I had where something was going on with my neighbor. I'm not kind that goes knocking on the door while you're digging in the ground. Didn't see anything in the way of utilities or anything like that to give me a clue. I went on vacation, the house went up, poof. I come back, holy cow, it's a house. Never expected that. Never expected anybody to do that with the covenants denying it. I'm still shaken from it. So that's fundamentally why I'm here. I just have repeated my previous handout from the 7th of February. Please come up with some solutions. I've offered different solutions every month since August. I haven't really heard any discussion that addresses the unintended consequence. It's been identified that homeowners associations can be difficult to get communication back from, and so that's why I proposed the lowest notice of notifying neighbors. So please come up with some solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no other public comment. We'll go to members' comments. Any members' comments this morning?
Larry, if I have a question about this proposal, can I ask any member comment, or?
If it's on the agenda, it would be better to do it during the agenda item.
Okay, I don't think it's on the agenda, is it? You mean?
What proposal are you?
One of the things Mr. Vanderspool talks about, where would that be, like under future topics?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Good spot to put it.
Okay.
No members' comments. Morning, Jim.
Morning.
Move on to new business, the Unified Development Ordinance text amendment. Adam, you want to get us started on that?
Sure. I'll bring Renee.
Sure.
All right, so this UDO text amendment originates from the latest House bill related to solar and wind production facilities and specifically the zoning process. The state has put together some timetables or some time constraints on the zoning processes in order for, from the time of application to the time that they need to go before and conclude their public hearings. And then they also put in some, a little bit more restrictive setback requirements, among other things, compared to our current UDO. So, and it required all counties to adopt and have this adopted by May, was it 1st? May 30th, end of May. So in order to do that, we needed to get this rolling immediately. And so I'll turn it over to Renee. I know we have the proposed amendments in the packet. And so if there are any questions, certainly go through those. Renee, handle it.
So we're just asking today for your blessing to go forward with the process. We do have the hearing scheduled for, I believe, next Thursday before the zoning board of appeals.
Okay. Did anybody else have a comment? Otherwise, I've looked through this and it looks like you've just taken what the state says we have to do and that's where we're at with it. I mean, it's not a lot here for us to discuss, is there?
There's no additional, so I mean, to compare it to one of the other items on our agenda, the fee schedule, there's no additional items that, staff has input to say, hey, while we're doing this, it'd be a good idea to add this that we've talked about.
Changing the language to meet what the state requires and that's where we're, okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, and I would just say, for the record, the other issue is that the state has pretty much said we're out of it. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about how far away from the road or from the neighbors are gonna be, and that's really it. After that, if you wanna put one up, you can put it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing boils my blood, but there's nothing
Yeah,
we can do about
there's
it.
nothing, I mean, it's no different than, if you look at the underlying statute, they talk about what defines agriculture. It's defined as agriculture, we can't control it either. So,
This is defined as agriculture.
no, it's defined as solar energy and wind energy, but it says you are in the same category, you can't do
Yes.
anything about it. If it's zoned ag, we can put a solar farm there or a wind tower there. And our only question really is, how close is it to the neighbors? So,
Go ahead, Renee.
Just so you guys know, we have 3 that were applied for on the day that the law went into effect. So we have 3 that we are processing with this kind of rushed time frame right now. So
Solar or wind?
you'll be seeing those soon. All solar.
All solar.
We've never had wind. Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead, John.
Just a question. About 15 years ago, there was a cell tower put up on the approach of Daisy Airport. And every time you go around, you always got to keep one eye on that damn tower as you're coming into land. So, I mean, are there anything in our Peru that would, like, there's Lake in the Hills, there's Galton in Wonder Lake, there's Daisy. If a guy were to put a tower on the approach of one of those runways, right, is there anything that we could do that would be like, there's a health and safety risk there?
Sure.
The way that I read the state law, it seemed like they were leaving alone the things that FAA could regulate. So I left those in our ordinance as well. So if it is near an airport, there has to be FAA review.
It does have to be.
It does,
It does have
yes.
to be, okay. Very interesting. I
The
probably
solar
got around
panels.
that one in Daisy, in Harvard, but.
Yeah.
When we, 10 years
Okay.
ago, when we worked on the UDO, the issue was on wind. The only place that really qualified for wind in terms of the wind studies was around Marengo Ridge. Everything else seemed to fail, so I'm not expecting a whole bunch of solar, wind farms. They just don't have the wind velocities to maintain.
Yeah.
But it could be, you never know. We
That
get
northwest
new
corner
technology in
is, that
10 years.
northwest corner is pretty flat, my friend.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it was, yeah, because we worked with, I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead, Carolyn.
We worked with somebody who, with solar panels, and who had been in the wind industry and got out of it completely because it was, the gusting was actually harder on the
I can
equipment.
imagine, sure.
And so he just got out of that business altogether.
Oh, well.
Jim, did you have something?
For here.
So the 3 that applied on the day, are any of those, are they sizable?
They're about the 20-acre range.
They're still.
They're not like Duke Energy. They're more like the ones that you would typically see.
So, can I have a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I had a lot of questions, but if it's really something that we can't do anything about anyway, I mean, I don't want to take a lot of time with it, but it talks about, even because of the time frame, if there's any problems with the siting, and I'm thinking in terms of like, topography or wetlands or whatever that we would normally be really concerned about, it sounds like those get resolved concurrently as opposed to being resolved prior to the start of the project. So how do you guarantee compliance?
Well, the short answer on that is after it's approved, the land use is approved, then it goes into the permitting stage. And that's when we'll look at wetland delineations and impacts and everything that goes with drain tile surveys, everything that goes with that. We may see that there's something that prohibits the proposed layout, and then they gotta go back through the process of a major amendment or something along those lines. So it's usually to the applicant's advantage to iron out a lot of those things. But that's one item I know we've discussed at length that we'll end up facing that more often is kind of our prediction, reading the tea leaves.
And then one thing we've changed with our process is because of this shortened timeline, these things can't go to staff plat review like they do now. But what we have gotten agreement with everyone that's on staff plat is the planners, as soon as they get them, they're gonna send them to the individual members who are gonna give us written comments that we'll put in the packet for ZBA. And if it's something really major, I guess we can make it a condition. But again, like Member Gottemoller said, if they meet those minimum setbacks, you guys don't have the option of rejecting it.
And they took away the 1.5 mile buffer too. I mean, the municipality can't even object. That doesn't. seems
That's
like
for
that-
wind only.
That was for wind only? Okay.
Yeah, that was cut down.
Okay.
There, Jim?
So for the existing conditional uses that we approved in the past on solar farms and that, we have like 40 of them? And
We gotta find
36.
how do you see those landowners reacting with this? Do you see some of them withdrawing their petitions possibly? Or they're not petitions, but they're conditional use and just starting over with the state? Would it be to their advantage to do that?
I haven't heard anything, any rumblings of that, and
Is that a let a dead dog lie, or?
And it
Well, I'm just
depends on
saying,
whether-
if I were one of those
Oh, absolutely.
guys, I would just say, heck with the county at this point, and withdraw and move forward.
Well, wouldn't that depend on how much money you invested into your planning? And, you've already invested a significant amount of money through application and planning, and if we're not hearing from them, then we just move forward. This is kind of agree, it's a done deal. We're just voting on language here. So, we can't do
Well,
anything about it.
What I see, Jim, I think he's correct. Duke, we'll pick on Duke. They agreed to hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of drain tile studies and everything else. Those all go out the window.
Well, if they reapply.
Whether they want to go back and say we're gonna start over.
Don't have any of those requirements.
Understand, reapplying is 45 days. That's all. it
Well,
takes.
that's not the purview of this motion, though, right?
No,
We're
we
just
don't have
looking
any,
at
we don't,
language.
and even that, that's a business decision that Duke and those companies are gonna make.
Right, we have, right.
It is a good discussion, though. I could see, landscaping plans and everything else.
You ready?
so a little update on Duke as well. The planner in Boone County resigned, so a friend of mine is filling in there. And she sent me just yesterday, Duke just applied to them to renew their conditional use
Yeah.
permit because they have.
Conditions.
It's
So-
coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conditions.
So, and with that 150% of decommissioning, I mean, so let's use them too. If they didn't reapply, they would be held to the 150%?
Yes,
Right,
and
so-
and we
and that's
already
another
have
reason.
those bonds. They've already put those up, so.
So
we're
they're gonna
happy with those.
reapply and we'll be all done with
And they'll get the bonds back, yeah.
all those gains that we had.
Well, they're probably afraid of Pete Austin and Adam Wallen, though. They don't
That's true.
change anything that they've already agreed to
They
now.
went through a long process.
All that legislative authority they have.
Yeah, right. Let's see.
So if there's nothing else, I think we'll just,
Do you need a resolution to move it forward or not? What do you guys want?
Yeah, so it goes, this-
I'll make a motion to send it to zoning board.
okay, Jim seconds it.
Yes.
And if there's any further discussion, we'll go to vote on it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so go ahead and move forward with that. Any presentations? Don't need to see Scott here at all even, so. Any presentations, Peter, that you know of, or nothing going on there? Okay.
Next time, we'll do something on moths, hopefully.
On what?
Moths.
the gypsy moth.
Yay, that would be very exciting.
Yeah.
Well,
If
that's-
you're interested, Scott can tell you a little bit about where we're at, but
Okay, I might get updated.
Hard freeze.
when we get our future time.
Yeah, I'll get updated on that out of the committee.
Sitting in the back, watching the presentation.
Okay, we'll move on to the routine consent agenda. Does anybody want anything removed from the routine consent agenda?
Just to make a point that 7.1, as far as I'm concerned, I have to abstain from anything.
Okay. And I believe I'm pulling 7.3, so is there any, so I'm gonna pull 7.3. So right now we got 7.1 and 7.2 on the board.
I just have, I guess 7.2 I would like to pull, just because I have a
Okay, well, we've been
question.
voting on them all
One
separately.
at a time.
Okay, 7.1, could I have a motion for, moved by John, seconded by Joe, resolution to award the contract?
Oh, no, not, you can't second that. by
I'll
myself.
second it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see you put your hand up almost.
I'm sorry,
Okay, we gotta retract that, Kathy. Motion by John, seconded by Jim. Resolution to award the contract to complete the outstanding common space work at the Henning Estates. Mr. Godemauer is abstaining. And is there any discussion on it? That's the only one that nobody was gonna question, so. If there's no question on it, we'll go to vote. Carolyn?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, so we're done with 7.1. Move on to 7.2. Motion made by Jim, seconded by Joe. Jim, you had a question about this one?
I only, on the O'Brien Road property, how do we select going in and cleaning up and demo?
How did this one get selected?
Yeah, how did that one get selected? It's out, kind of out?
Sure. So it met the criteria. So the criteria for the IDA program was to be 2 years abandoned and have unsafe conditions. And there's some other ones, but those are the, if you will, low-hanging fruit. So when we look at our violations, this one was actually from 2013 that it was turned into us as an abandoned property, and at that point it was kind of already caved in. And when this came about, we had an owner, but he never came out of the woodwork. And we knew it was big. There's 40-some cars and a whole bunch of stuff there. And so we always had this on the back burner in terms of it might fit this program, but it might be too big. And as we did those other demos, this will be the 4th and 5th one in this set that we've done, and we had a couple others a couple years past. We took a swing at this one, and the numbers came back great. So we don't have another one that's necessarily jumping off the paper at us, but we have a couple that will fit the criteria next year.
So who owns, I shouldn't say, we don't need to name the person. There is a legitimate owner of this property, or have they walked away from it?
So there is a legitimate owner, and we had no contact, couldn't get any response until we went until the state's attorney went through the request for the court order demolition.
Okay, so here's my question. What happens, we get in there and we run into because I saw a fuel pump, a gas pump there.
Mhm.
We run into an underground tank that's been leaking and contaminated soils. Because we've started this demolition, are we on the hook then for the cleanup of possibly contaminated soils?
We're not, at least in talking that very situation through. So we've turned it over to the state fire marshal. They know that there's an owner. They've assessed it. They were out, last Wednesday, with our team and with Christy Heckey, the IEPA representative from the health department. And we've excluded it from the scope for that very reason. You know, so it's going to be roped off, fenced off, and protected. Contractors are very well aware of it. They understand any inherited liability in the event that they back over it, do anything like that. We don't know if it's leaking. There is still fuel, there's liquid in there. So the fire marshal, the state fire marshal will be the ones that that's under their purview in terms of approaching and regulating authority.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Carolyn.
So to follow up on Jim's
Mhm.
comment, so what does it mean in terms of ownership then, right? I mean, once we do the demolition,
The gentleman that owns the property will maintain ownership. We will put a mechanics lien on the property for the value of the demolition and keep it there until perpetuity, really is the intention.
right, and so the dollars were through 2 different grants,
Correct.
right? And so obviously this doesn't take all that money. So does that sit there then for future demolitions?
Yeah.
Right, okay. And how
Yeah.
long does that, do we have that?
So, funny, we just got an email yesterday from the state, they're granting an extension to the entire program for 2 more quarters for this round. And so we'll have it through the 3rd quarter of this year. However, we have to bring it back to do a resolution with the county board to get that extension. Essentially, it's showing good faith that the county still wants to use those funds. So while we're doing that resolution, the funds are going to be spent down depending on weather and schedule on these demos. So we will have some left over, and then the idea is that we would actually apply for another grant if these houses that we have identified, we have 4, 5, or 6 of them that are potentially going to meet that criteria where they're fallen in or abandoned, meet those unsafe conditions.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So the property taxes are being up to date and current? For an
Yes.
abandoned property?
Yes, that is not on the tax sale list. They've been maintained.
Strange, but okay.
Right.
Well, it's actually probably cheaper for this landowner to let us clean up his mess that he's got there. And it's almost too bad if he sits 10 years with that on the lien for 10 years on his property before he sells it, or if he never sells it. The problem we have there is we did a cleanup and we invested that money in him or her or whoever.
Well, we invested it in the land.
Right.
Someday that land's gonna sell and we'll get our check.
Right, it's a shame that you can't charge the interest on that to force him to cough up his money.
But taking your point of interest, when you put the lien, does that have accrued interest each year that it's not paid off?
It's a little bit out of my realm of
I don't know.
expertise, but I'm
I
guessing
would
no.
think there's some sort of
I don't
interest,
know.
but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to read the actual lien terms and.
My only frame of reference on this, we just got a lien back for a property that we did some owner-occupied rehab where they sold it, and then that lien came back to us to the penny that we had it.
So, and
It
then,
doesn't sound advantageous.
just as discussion, it's really not our money.
No.
We're getting outside money to do it, and it's there just to help safety issues with bad buildings. The system's working, why tweak it?
Yeah.
No, I'm not asking to tweak it, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that this whole program, how long does it take from when you started that to actually get to the point where we can clean it up? What was the beginning point,
So
2013?
this one was 2013. It's believed that the property was abandoned in 2009. The other one that's up for demolition was abandoned, I believe, in 2018. But the person was living in it basically in the conditions that you see. Wow. It was in dire straits.
Okay. All
Kind
right.
of complicated by the fact that he's paying the taxes.
You're right.
Yeah.
Because there are tools to expedite the acquisition
Right.
of the property with, if he's not paying the taxes, but he's paying it.
Yeah.
So he's beating the system a little bit.
Yeah, he is.
That's the bottom
Cleaning
line.
up
but
his mess.
It's a public safety issue, so we're sort of doing our good deed for the public safety of it. So, then we got the right to remove all those cars and all that stuff too. And
Yes, yeah.
Or
As
is
it
it- or
turns
does
out,
it-
you can see there's some price volatility in the bids, some big discrepancies between high and low, and the cars, for those that were low, the cars are the thing that drove the price down, because they can get some scrap value from them. It was a good surprise.
Yeah. So as an energetic young man, I'd say I'd want to take all those windows out of that T-Bird, because they're probably worth a lot of money.
There are some cool ones in there, aren't there?
Yeah. Yeah, so, okay, let's see, where are we at with this one? Any other discussion on 7.2? Okay, we'll go to vote. Jim?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. We'll move on to 7.3. I'm the one that pulled it. Does anybody else? So,
I'll move
Joe, do you
I'll move to approve.
make a motion to approve 7.3?
Second.
Seconded by Lou. Open for discussion. Anybody have any discussion on it?
You called it.
Yeah, I know. I thought I'd let you guys go first if you wanted to. I figured somebody wanted. Go ahead, Carolyn.
No, I don't
No,
think so. I was
okay.
just gonna look
I,
at my notes
in the
here.
fee schedule notes, that first line, I've got it printed out. If you don't have it, Adam, I can bring it to you, or,
I've got you. Yeah, 1 through 9, the first one.
yeah, 75% or 25%. That line just reads weird. Maybe you can.
I didn't edit that, no.
Maybe you can explain
I
it
hear
to
you.
me.
Okay, so $75 or 25% of the total building and stormwater management fee, permit fees, including any double fee and BFE determination, whichever is greater, is due at the time, is due on application submittal. So if we have a minor service permit, that would be a $75 permit. Or our current structure has a shed for like $150. If it's, we wouldn't take a $37.50 fee, we would take the $75 for that $150 fee. Or we would take the full minor service permit $75 fee up front, because we would issue those over the counter. So essentially what it drives is, once it gets over $75, now it becomes 25% of whatever that
Okay.
permit fee is.
Okay.
You want me to rephrase it? I'll try.
I know, it's all right. As long as, if you understand it and you can explain it to the applicant, I'm
Yeah.
fine.
I've seen that terminology quite a lot. It's whatever's less or whatever's greater is.
Yeah, okay, it just read a little funny to me, that's all.
Yeah, sure.
Not funny, and it's different.
Yeah.
You amuse me?
Once again, if you can, if you're comfortable with it and you can explain it to the applicant,
Is this second?
when I reread it and listen to your
Okay, that's
explanation,
This thing.
I understand what you're saying now.
Okay.
So anything over $75 becomes 25%.
Once $75 is 25%.
Okay.
So anything over $300 would
Okay.
then be 25%.
Okay, got it. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Yeah.
Okay. Carolyn, were you asking me in the hall about the signing off on the refunds, or is it something that's part of this? or-
No.
No, okay.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions on this one? We'll go to vote. John?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. No old business, we'll go to reports for the ZBA and other hearing officer reports. Renee, please.
So you have 3 coming to you this month. There is, knock wood, no controversy that I know of. The first one is the Sheriff's Department, the expansion of their gun range out at the McDuck facility. There were some members of the public there that had some questions, but no objections to it. Unanimous approval or recommendation for approval from the ZBA. The second one is McNulty. That's a landscape business with outdoor storage that's just north here on 47, Old Klein's Market. He started that business off as more of a garden center retail establishment, but over the years it's morphed into a landscape contractor with outdoor storage, so he needed the CUP. So that did come to us as a violation. But that one, again, the reason that you see 5-0, there were only 5 members of the zoning board there that day. No controversy with that one. And then the last one is the Crandalls. That is an old farmstead property that the family has divided. The way that the property got divided and the parcel with the houses on it was split off. They have 2 homes on this one parcel. So it's a classic A1 to A2 in that they've divided off the farmstead. The difference or the uniqueness is they're asking for a variation to allow the 2 residential structures on the one parcel. So we asked them, why can't you parcel each one individually? But they can't meet the way that the property is situated. They can't meet an exception to the State Plat Act to make that second division of
You'd lose that
that home.
250 feet or whatever.
So they're asking for a variation to allow 2 homes on one parcel. And that one got unanimous approval as well.
Okay, very good. No questions on any of that. We'll move to, Lou, did you have something you wanted to bring up for future topics?
Yes, yeah, so I'm looking at Mr. Vander's proposal. I'm thinking about, you know, our previous conversation in workforce housing. And I wonder if there's value in considering, at least looking at some of the things that he's developed here. Would that be something you think would be a good addition to our conversation?
You want to bring it up for a future topic, Lou? Is that
Oh.
for discussion? Is that what you're thinking?
I just,
We're not going to
Yes.
discuss it right now because
Okay.
it's not on the agenda.
okay.
But we can, if you would like to bring it up for future
Okay,
conversation, we
could we
can.
do that? Maybe I could, is it, okay, okay, great, thank
Yeah.
you.
If you'd like it to be on the agenda for next month for discussion, we could certainly do that.
Okay.
We've had this conversation a couple times, but we can review it again.
I would appreciate that.
Okay, it's okay, Adam, you do that for us, thanks.
Sure. Could I just ask, are you referring to my E, just to help me clarify?
I'm sorry, Mr. Vanderspool, but it's not public comment time. So, and I know it seems relevant, but if we let
Sure,
public
that's
comment
fine.
happen at any time, then
Shut
it can,
up.
in certain subjects, it can get out of control. So I gotta be rather strict about that. Okay, for future topics, we're done. We don't have an executive session for anything. Go ahead, Adam.
I just wanted to bring up the conversation with regarding SWCD. We took another step towards, and got some clarity on it. And we're still gonna have a conversation a little bit more in depth with, some additional parties, specifically the Farm Bureau. We're preparing and lining up to have something to present April, PED. If we don't, then I'll certainly let everybody know.
Okay, well, hopefully we can, but we need to move that along. Carl,
Yep.
you got something?
Just a question, we put back where we had the 2 entities that couldn't talk to each other to,
That's what he's talking
Okay.
about.
Just talking about-
Great, that's
Yep.
April. And that's what they've already met one time with, unfortunately, I did not make that meeting. And we were gonna put together another meeting with the Farm Bureau, et cetera. Yeah, but you don't have a time for that.
We don't have the time for that.
Okay. Okay. If you send me an email on that meeting, shoot me a text or something too, Adam, because
All right.
I don't catch my email every day and I want to make sure I make that meeting.
All right, you got it.
Okay, good. No executive session needed.
Motion to adjourn.
Good. Peter, did you want to talk first?
I just wanted to, again, for next time, we are moving towards having a presentation on gypsy moss. We've had some complaints about gypsy moss north of Marengo, so we've been kind of working with the state and Master Gardener Scott's been kind of running out of points, so we can have a presentation if that's your pleasure.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we need to protect them.
I did get a phone call from the constituent there, just so grateful that you all are on this, no matter what happens.
they're just so grateful that,
Okay, that sounds great. We're gonna have a presentation. Scott's working on it, I know. We'll save that for next meeting.
That's why we-
The motion to adjourn by Mr. Godemuller, seconded by
I thought there was a.
Carolyn. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.